Hello, and welcome to the Tales of the Whoniverse podcast. We are back. It's me, Matt, and hello once again here for your Doctor Who delights. We're taking a fantastic trip back in time to 1988 in the second year of the Doctor himself, Sylvester McCoy, and the first year of his wonderful companion, Ace, as played by Sophie Aldred. Before we get into Remembrance of the Daleks, which has quite a lot of ground to cover, allow me to also reintroduce Aidan, the co-host for this evening. Hello, Aidan.
Hello, Matt. Glad to be back again, and hopefully I sound all right because yeah, tonight I'm doing something different by using Bluetooth earphones tonight. So hopefully I sound all right. And also, don't forget to I have to remember to quote the main man himself, Sylvester McCoy. I'm Scottish as well, you know.
I thought,
I'm sorry, I had to do that bit from Comic Con Aberdeen.
I thought that was some great puppetry you did there. And I thought you threw your voice very well.
I mean, sometimes my impression of Sylvester McCoy can be pretty good, especially rolling the R's.
Oh, absolutely. Now, tonight's episode is an amazing story that goes back to the 25th anniversary year of Doctor Who. So this was the year that the Cybermen had also come back into the show after their last appearance in Attack of the Cybermen with Colin Baker. Silver Nemesis, sorry, I lost the words, got a bit tongue-tied there, was the big main event of the story. But personally, like so many of myself believe, and I don't know if you feel this as well, Aidan, that this
Oh, I
story
do.
should have been the true 25th anniversary special, since it's the return of not only Davros and the Daleks, continuing on the renegade Imperial faction that began in Revelation of the Daleks. It's a love letter to the William Hartnell age by essentially unraveling some little mysteries around the whole Cold Hill School scenario about why him and Susan were there in the first place to deal with the Hand of Omega. Now, before we get any further into tonight's podcast, because there's going to be quite a bit of ground to cover, let's talk a little bit about the fantastic cast, which is something different here. So we've already mentioned Sylvester and Sophie, but there is some incredible guest stars in the cast tonight as well. You have the likes of a surprise appearance of John Leeson, who returned, not playing K9. It was a different role. He did some Dalek voices, particularly the little girl from the Dalek thing when she's in the time controller. So when she's doing the Dalek voices, it's her voice blended with John Leeson. So when you hear it, you've got her and K9 together. You've also got a Doctor Who return in Pamela Salem, who is Rachel, part of the Countermeasures group, who last appeared on Doctor Who many, many years earlier with Tom Baker and Louise Jameson in the exciting episode The Robots of Death, which is also out in Caldor, and would be the basis one day for Big Finish's companion Livchenka to come from Caldor, which came from that story. And she appeared
Yeah.
before and she also appeared in the Robots box sets alongside Liv and the late David Collins. So it's wonderful to see this cast of crew, including Karen Glenhill, and you also see as well Simon Williams, Group Captain Gilmore, who is essentially the predecessors of Unit and the Brigadier. So they're like the fill-in for the story, because obviously the Brig comes in the next season in Battlefield. But there's one special guest member as well that has a little cameo. The cafe owner, who's played by the wonderful Joseph Marcel, who is in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, who's the butler as well to like Will Smith's character. So this is before he goes on to that. So it's a little role before he's shot to stardom in America for that. And the guy that the sergeant that Ace plays with, like the one that is also part of the essential countermeasures team, as they'll one day be
Yeah,
called.
Mike.
Yes, Mike Smith. So which the premise that Russell T Davies based It's a Sin on, which funny enough had a Dalek story to homage the actor as well in It's a Sin. So It's a nice little band and a little club of actors together, and the return of Roy Skelton, the voice of the Daleks, who this will be his last time on the TV side of it until obviously Curse of Fatal Death, written by Richard Curtis and overseen by Stephen Moffat. So no, it was written by Moffat, but with assistance from Richard Curtis, so I got it the wrong way around. And the last thing as well for Remembrance, so we kick off you can't have it, as I mentioned, the man himself, Davros. And this is the end of the original Davros saga of the classic series that began with Genesis, of the late Michael Wisher to David Goodison, and now we're on our third and final iteration of the classic hero with Terry Malloy, who had been playing the role since he worked with Peter Davison. So yeah, we've covered quite a bit of the cast, because the difference with tonight's one is it's with a nice homage to celebrate not only that 25th period, is to highlight the incredible people as part of the whole Cartmel master plan by Andrew Cartmel and written by Ben Aronovich. No, sorry, Ben Aronovich. My apologies, because I've just recently remembered how to pronounce him. So over on a different side tonight, it's over to Ada with opening thoughts about how he feels about Remembrance of the Daleks. Over to you, Aidan.
Yeah, honestly, I'd say Remembrance of the Daleks is it's easy to see why it's like so many people's like is one of their at least one of their favorite classic stories in general because honestly, it's got everything. It's got Daleks, it's got action, it has its quiet moments, and it tells like an interesting story. Like not just with like the Doctor playing like a chess game with both Dalek factions. And interesting enough, this is actually like properly the start of his like more calculating, manipulative side. Like we don't see too much on the manipulative side, but we definitely get a bit more calculating than we did in season 24. Which, yes, yes, we'll get season 24 one day, but today is not that day.
No.
But yeah, like the side characters are also interesting as well. Like Mike, who's working also for Mr. Ratcliffe, who's like he doesn't seem like much at first, but it's like during the story you end up learning a bit more about him, like as he's like working for the renegade Daleks, and like learning he's also a fascist. Like when he's talking about like Britain being on the wrong side of the war, being imprisoned for speaking out against for declaring war against Germany, and it's like an interesting little thing, but which like ends up leading to him like later getting killed by the schoolgirl, like who's like linked to the Daleks' battle computer, or rather the renegade Daleks, I should say. Whereas meanwhile, the Imperial Daleks were basically like mainly using stealth inside Coal Hill School and using the head teacher, like who ends up fighting Mike and ends up getting killed. Not by Mike, but I think the Imperial Daleks just being like, yeah, he's not any further use to us. Bye. But yeah, also it was great to see like Davros back, like for or at least Terry Malloy back as Davros one more time on screen. Even if it was only brief, like we saw him in his Emperor casing like at the start of like around part 3, but we don't really find out it's Davros until near the end of the story, when the Doctor like tries to contact the Imperial Dalek mothership after they get the hand of Omega. And yeah, it's definitely a great show of like Seven's like manipulation where he's like, no, Davros, don't use the hand. It's not to be trifled with. And then later on he's like, when Davros accidentally, does a little thing by it's just a bit small by destroying Skaro. But you see like the Doctor's just like, no, Davros, you tricked yourself. And it's like nothing can stop it now. I have pity for you. Goodbye, Davros. It hasn't been pleasant. Yeah, you can just definitely tell like McCoy was acting his heart out with that. And one more thing before I forget. the introduction of Ace, like I can know she first appeared in Dragonfire, but as her first like outing in the TARDIS, oh my god, like this is probably one of the best first adventures for a companion. I think in the whole of Classic Who, like Nixon, like you see her like as soon as she comes on screen, then she's holding like a boombox, like which for the 1960s isn't really era appropriate because yeah, it's like that discovery would lead to like I can't remember what they said in the episode, but it's like the technical yeah. Yeah, honestly, I'm just suffering right now because of how excited I am just to review this. But yeah, it's like we get to see Ace like even like batter an Imperial Dalek, which is probably like one of if not the most iconic scenes like in the whole story where it's like the Dalek's like small human female sighted on level 3, and then it's like oh you're calling small, and then just proceeds to like just bat it and like visually impaired, which is like blocking off the ice storm. Like
Mm.
honestly, like it's like just like so action packed and it's just so good.
Mm. It is indeed. Also, I've just picked up the cast list as well. So it's Dursley McLinden for Mike, the gender, as I said, for the inspiration of It's a Sin. So what a scumbag that character is! Not, and that just proves how talented the actor was. So he was working on behalf of like the countermeasures team in this group, and he dobbed Ace in about the Hand of Omega because obviously he was playing both sides because obviously he was on the Daleks side all along. But obviously, we find that out as it goes on. So my opening thoughts on Remembrance of the Daleks. So when I first saw this all those years ago, this was one of the earliest experiences I had of Classic Who. Was this story? I know people say to me all the time. I know I've said on record many times it's Scream of the Schalke, but when it comes to Classic Who, yes, I've seen Tom because of UK Gold. I saw Colin. I saw Peter Davison, but with Sylvester, this was the episode I think clicked for me the most that I knew I was into Classic Who because to begin with, it's really of its time and it's really of the future times because you got the doctor and the companion who's asking questions but she's not like being patronized or being there to be like stood around and be like yes girl no girl stand in the corner. Unfortunately it's not the doctor's fault of the past, it's more the writers of those eras. They'll just make them stand around and just go like oh doctor, this is his essential equivalent of a companion, his first ever equal, which becomes the basis of New Who. And what I would find so funny in the previous episode, which we haven't covered yet on the podcast, Dragonfire, where Aidan has mentioned it. In that one, she was just swirled up into a mystery, lobbed into an adventure, which is essentially a Trial of the Time Lord sequel with both Mel and Glitz, obviously for the end of that era, of the Mel era. She held her own with all these professionals, but to me, this is when she really stood out and she held court in this. Because the one thing I really liked, and if you notice the big subtle hint in this story, is Mike could potentially have been like I don't want to really upset people because we're not going into a political thing with this. But if you watch, there's a certain element when Ace is in Mike's mum's house, and there's a certain moment in there where you're thinking, yeah, this is definitely of its time, and Ace is not for that.
Yeah,
So I'm so glad to see that that's what the show needed to progress because it's a show about time and space, and she's though she's from the 80s, to go about like 20 years her predecessor in that time period, it felt like she had such disdain of being in that house. When she said, I'm going out for a walk, you could see how done she was with the house she was staying in. And that's bits that make Ace's character incredible. She's willing to challenge stuff rather than sit down and take things as no nonsense. The fact is, most Doctor's companions, when the Daleks are about, they need the Doctor in the corner to help out as well. But the incredible ending cliffhanger scene of part 2 when she's surrounded by the Daleks. Like, she's ready to hold her own and she's surrounded. Only for, in the next episode, of course, the Doctor saved her, but she didn't have to be saved. She was ready to either go out being exterminated or blow them all together to high heaven. That's the type of person Ace is. It's an incredible journey into Ace and the Doctor's relationship, because this is when it's more of like a student-teacher relationship rather than a grandfather. I've hurt myself. Okay, yes, dear child, I don't care. I'm just busy off doing another adventure. Why aren't you just over there sitting down being quiet? And that's basically what Ace is not about. She's not there to be pushed around. She really held her own against all the military. But I think one of the most hysterical scenes, which we haven't touched upon, is the scene in the car with when Ace is driving, and all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, if you want to do it, you go for it driving. Next thing you know, they go through like a tunnel, and next thing you know, she's like, how did they swap over so quickly? I think that's one of the
wait, how do we swap seats? I was like, don't worry about it, Ace. We'll talk about it later in Big Finish. Wait, what's Big Finish?
Of course,
Oh, spoilers.
Big Finish.
Oops.
Big Finish explaining of the tunnels. I think for me, Revelation and this are personally my favourite Dalek schemes of the classic era. There's just something about the white Daleks, like the Imperials, because obviously that's what they were, and the black Daleks, the Renegades, to represent the good and the evil. But what's funny about that, they're both evil factions, they're just working for two different sides. From what I remember on Revelation, the Black Daleks are working for the Supreme Dalek, and obviously these Imperial ones are working, of course, for Davros. So it's kind of like gang wars in the middle of the height of the Dalek Empire, which Russell has also testified this is part of another start of the Time War because of the destruction of Skara later on in the story. What do I think about this music? Creepy of its time, high energy. It's like an action film for a television. It's like the budget had shot up for like the 1980s. But the most funniest story, at the end of part one, you see Sylvester with like the Dalek going up the stairs. That's supposed to be really menacing. And they were terrified how to do this because they're worried that the operator was going to fall backwards. It's literally in that Dalek when they were lifting it up the stairs. They were worried about crushing the poor jet. Luckily, that didn't happen because obviously what turned out. Because Daleks never flew before this episode, so that was a big deal to happen. And for the fact that they had a legitimate operator in there rather than making a prop because it would have been too expensive, it's just so funny to me because, yeah, it must have been a health and safety nightmare. But the fact you got literally somebody in there is like, come on, we're trying to do the take. Don't let me go backwards. Backwards. It's just... And the fact they probably had to reshoot that scene because of the cliffhanger to redo the bit for the next week as well. You're probably like, oh, not again. It's probably why I like it so much as well. As I mentioned, there is some incredible actors as well, but especially the little girl actor. Jasmine Banks, I think her name is. Let me just have a quick look again. Just hold on, there's a quick. Pamela Sano. Sorry about that. George. Then the next one.
Yeah, I was going to say, Matt, while you're looking up. Yeah, because I was remembering another scene that was kind of linked to the earlier one where you're mentioning about Ace looking at the sign. Like, there was a bit there that I think we should definitely at least talk about because there's a bit there like before Ace goes out, like the TV turns on. It's like this is BBC television. But the time is about 5:15, and it's time for a new science fiction series.
Yes,
Which is like,
they were doing that as a cheeky Easter egg to celebrate the anniversary. Because apparently in the book version that's not included. They changed it to a different television series.
What was it called?
I can't remember.
Director White.
No, it's something to do with an adventure. It's something to do with an adventure in time and space, which Doctor Who officially has as an official thing, but I can't remember the name of it. I might be misremembering, so forgive me, but it's been a while since I've listened to the audio version, so I'm gonna have to go back and do that again. But what I was going to say, yeah, I think this is one of the most perfect Dalek schemes. Even that unique Black Renegade Supreme Dalek, the fact that they had to call him in to help lead the faction. He's just literally there in the background. He's like the boss. He's like, okay, Daleks are dying, Daleks are dying, not my eye. But well, the funniest moment, I don't think it was intentional, is when the gang war happens, and then he's just like, nope. He just literally retreats into like the little warehouse.
Yeah, it's just like it's just the Supreme Boss is like I'm just gonna go.
Yeah, it's like,
But I
again.
will say, yeah, interesting enough, because I remember like learning a bit about like the behind the scenes for that scene, which was like it was definitely interesting, like trying to get the whole scene set up and learning that a lot of the shots in that was actually not included. Because I know that you know like when the special weapons Dalek like fires the second time,
Yeah,
which it actually reuses like it shows it like hitting the Daleks, but then just before the effect goes off, it actually cuts briefly to like the scene where the special weapons Dalek destroys the two Daleks that are patrolling the area,
yeah,
which is actually definitely interesting cuts. Like, which,
yes. What I also, as I said, what I enjoyed about it as well, it's not a typical Dalek story. It's like it's trying to address the history of the show because it's still mentioning, like this is a blood feud with the Doctor and Davros that goes way back to Genesis. Still, they're still going on about that old rivalry from that one episode. It's basically try to address certain aspects of the first Doctor that we never saw, because I think it's only just recently happened the Doctor just dropped out the casket. So down the road, as we know in expanded media, he's still down the road with Susan. So it's their day off at Coal Hill. So they mustn't know what this Dalek gang war's going on about. Well, they must be off world before coming back to it.
yeah, and also definitely it was also the start of like the whole Cartmel master plan, like where I was trying to inject a bit more mystery into the role of the Doctor, like in, like by showing like him like doing like things like even before like an unearthly child, like hiding away the hand of Omega, and then playing the long game, and then waiting
I
for
know
like the Daleks to show up.
Yeah. I know we have the Flux today that try to address all the mystery of the Doctor, but if you notice, it goes as far back to this when he even said like he's just far more than a normal Time Lord. So that's where the elements have all come from. But even watching further back with certain episodes with Tom Baker, he hints he can't remember how many times he's regenerated. So that already tells you that they've been planning this long game as far back as Tom Baker for all of this.
Yes.
But that's a whole other topic, and I don't want to add can of worms being over tonight. I never remember. So,
Yeah. We'll save that. We'll save that and the drama resulting from that later.
yeah. So, what do I think of the cast and crew? I think again, as I say, I don't mention Joseph Marcel earlier in the start of it, but he's got such a great part. Though it's a cameo, it's what Sylvester's like the every great decisions line, which something we used on a little thing called the Five-ish Doctors reboot. I wonder where he got that from.
I wonder. It's like where Colin Baker used that quote. Well, what's the use of a good quote if you can't change it?
Mm, yes, I think that's why I quite like the story as well, because it's got Seven who's being a philosopher more in this one compared to how his whole first season was like he was just a madcap adventurer. Now he's training someone to be his equal, essentially, or to take on Daleks with no questions asked.
Yes, and also I know I'm going to make a slight job at season 24, but at least there was a bit of a break from the whole screaming thing. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well,
I had to just make that.
I think Sophie had the right mindset. I think this season and the next one, I think she was asked in one script to scream, and she said, Ace doesn't scream. And I know Big Finish has got one audio where Ace actually does scream, but when I heard it didn't sound like a proper scream. But it's weird. Like, how would you down the line, as writers, not understand this is not what the actress or the character represents?
Yeah, 'cause especially which audio was it again that Ace was screaming? Yeah, 'cause I'm trying to
I'll,
remember. So it's just too,
I'll have to
too
Google it,
many
Hayden.
audios.
I'm sure it was one of the Hex arc. I'm sure I read it's one of those earlier ones where the writer just put it as a screamer and it says on the continuity, a screams or something. And that's not something Sophie does.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god, Ace screamed.
I know. I think
Uh,
even with Dragonfire, I think she screamed a little bit, but you can understand that's her. It's a first time story written by a team that hadn't known what they were going to do with her. Because it's fascinating to look at the previous episode that she was a test companion, and if it didn't work out, it would have been that Welsh girl from Delta and the Bannerman instead.
yeah, although she is coming back, like Ray from Delta and the Bandman. She's coming back in the new classic Doctor's New Monsters box set coming out in
Yeah,
January.
yes, but it's fascinating that they said that they knew Bonnie was going that season. So when they found out she was, every companion in there that the Doctor was paired with, all the females were like the trials, even the ones in Paradise Tower. Sorry, Paradise Tower. Sorry,
Paradise Tower. Yeah,
oh,
is
sorry,
this
I
the
don't know
garage
what
version of
happened.
Paradise Tower?
Sorry, throat got stuck.
Honestly, what next? We're going to get a Doctor Who equivalent to Top Gear called Max Warp.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know what happened there, folks. But no, with Paradise Towers, yeah, I think even one of the Kang girls would have probably been his companion. But obviously, I think it's the one that he got close with out of the Red Kangs. But again, we're going into different topics. So let's go a little bit back into Remembrance. So it's also the first time you really get to see Coal Hill School, apart from an unearthly charge. You get to see it in full and the outside of it.
yeah, and then we wouldn't really see it again until I'm pretty sure it's like around Day of the Doctor, I think, or is it around Series 7B? It's been a while since I've watched Series 7B.
No, you were correct. It was there. The Doctor was the first time back as Remembrance. Then it appeared in Series 8 in The Caretaker. And then obviously. Oh, sorry, no, it's not. Is it Series 8 or 9? It's been a while since I. No, it was
Yeah,
Series
it
8.
was. I think it was in both. Yeah, they're both Series 8 and 9. Because I was in the Magician's Apprentice, like
Yeah,
like
sorry
when
about
all the
this.
planes
My,
dropped.
my memory's gone a bit hazy this evening. I'm not drunk. I'm just putting a disclaimer out there. It's just called memory.
Yeah, so sometimes it's just been a long day, and
It's
your memory just
also
gets a bit scrambled.
yeah, and also it appeared again in Class, which it was obviously built around, but again, different show, but it's set in the same world. But anyway, so let's go on to the main gent and the main feature himself, Davros. So we have just done the story recently. For those who have not heard it, because obviously it's not out yet, but it will be by the time this podcast is out, of our Terra Firma review, where we literally followed on from a sequel, and we're now doing the prequel to that episode. So
Yeah,
this,
because clearly we
so
like
let's
doing
look.
things a little wrong order.
So Davros in this story, he is not Davros really. He's been addressed as the Emperor. He appears at the casing, but he already seems a bit nuttier than the fruitcake. Like he's just screaming and shouting every 5 minutes. I'm watching this. I wonder if that's where Joe Lister got the idea for the breakdown scenario, is watching this maniacal performance of Davros.
Yeah, because you could see it like it was kind of like the start of his transformation, like become more and more like a Dalek. Except, yeah, because I know in Revelation of the Daleks, his last TV appearance before this, like he was more calm and like calculated, like when he was in charge of like tranquil repose and like turning people into either Daleks or food.
Yeah. But this story, it felt like Davros's mind had snapped. It seemed like his head just seemed like it was on the verge of going when he was speaking to the doctor, because he got so cross just to see that he's regenerated again.
Yeah, yeah, and then like also like you can pretty much see that there's really not much left of him. Like, if you know like later stories, like the Juggernauts explain like that he was like caught in like the explosion, which was caused by the self-destruct mechanism of
But
his wheelchair.
he still looked like Davros. Where this is all wired up into the Emperor casing, which is another thing that like we need to address at some point with Russell. Though he died in the Time War as well, he looked perfectly healthy and back to normal, and out of like the electronics. So they still got to address at some point how we got out of the Emperor casing.
Yeah, I'm assuming because like more and more of his body is like more mechanical. Like he didn't really need like to be wired up.
Yeah,
Like in like more recent stories, because I know I'm going to jump to like more new Who. Because in Stoner, you could see like when he opened up his shirt, then he was like you could just see like his rotting like body like from like taking away lots of his like skin and cells like just to make more Daleks. And then in like The Witch is Familiar in that infamous like so anyone for Dodgems seen like and you can see him like on the ground like you can see like his spine was now pretty much like completely metal like so you can see like there's not really much of him left even there.
I know. But Davros has been on an incredible journey as a character. But I know people say sometimes Dalek stories are a bit dull when Davros is on the scene. But to be honest, I think sometimes he enhances it. Enhances. Sorry about me. My verbal library tonight, and just probably in that peak point of exhaustion. So all bets are off at the minute. I'm afraid, people. So
Yeah,
so let's just
don't
get
worry, man. I'll have a problem with
so to take it back. So going back to Revelation, I think that's a story we're definitely going to have to review, because not only was it the end of the time for Colin Baker as the Doctor before the trial happened, to me,
yeah, because
besides Remembrance, I think it's one of the strongest Dalek stories of the 80s.
yeah, because I know like all three stories from like the 80s, like Resurrection, Revelation, and Remembrance, they're all like strong stories. Like I may have a slight bit of bias for Resurrection for it being my first classic Who story, but honestly, like I can't deny that like Remembrance is definitely probably the best in my opinion.
I think Remembrance is the best for the Dalek War. Revelation is best for the Davros story. Resurrection is fantastic because you're starting to see Five starting to turn into a bit of a darker persona, which he's not normally, because he's got a gun pointed at Davros, and that darker side would come out in his next two bodies.
Yes, indeed.
So, in terms of like a little bit, because we talked also a little bit about the special effects change as well on Remembrance. I've seen a couple of the scenes. I think some work and some don't, but that's probably because if you are a fan of like the original story, makes no odds. But I do have a hats off to them for like doing these collection sets, because obviously they're doing like these extended editions where you get some things put back in, which I'd really would
Yeah,
like to watch as well. As I know Remembrance is one of those, so it'd be interesting to know what they've trimmed and chewed the fat of the original four parts that they put back into this one.
yeah, because I have seen like a few clips of like the updated special effects, like for Remembrance of the Daleks, like, and as you said, like a few of them like work for me, like the updated like Dalek ray effects, and also like new like establishing shots, like for like like the Imperial Dalek mothership, for example, and also like kind of like extending like scenes, like before, like right before, like the Imperial and Renegade Daleks like fight it out before they send in the special weapons Dalek. Like that's all really good stuff. Although I think if there's one like change I'm not 100% sold on, it's like it's two particular scenes in particular. Like when when the Hand of Omega is found and the Imperial Daleks are like more of them are approaching the Imperial Dalek mothership control room, like and also like the Supreme Renegade Dalek's death. Because I think because they use more like they replace the actual models with CGI, but I don't know. For me, like like it, I'm glad that they actually did, but it's like at times it does feel like it sticks out like a sore thumb. Like I'm not sure if you feel like that, Matt, but that's
I
for me
didn't.
like how kind of feels the building.
I didn't get that far watching. I only just watched up to the Daleks ray gun effects, so I'll have to watch those bits properly. But I think some things do work. I mean, look at the Day of the Daleks special edition, like before even the collector's out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That one worked because of Nick Briggs' like amazing dubbing for the Daleks.
Yeah, and also while we're on this topic of Nick Briggs dubbing things, maybe we can get him doing a dub of the Silurian voices in Warriors of the Deep for the season 21 box set whenever that comes out.
Start a
Maybe.
petition.
Oh yes, of course. I'll get on it right after this podcast.
Anyway, no, I think what's the great thing for the Dalek story for this, it's simplistic. It's and do you know what? It feels like with every season of New Who now, you sometimes don't need to watch like the previous season, like with Matt Smith or Tennant to get the gist of it. With McCoy, this
Yeah,
felt like you didn't need to watch his last season to understand who his Doctor is. It's like a jumping on point for new fans, this is.
yeah. It's probably like one of the best jumping on points like in all of Doctor Who, like especially for the seventh Doctor. Like I think apart from that, there's like also Big Finish stories and then Time in the Rani, but yeah, that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, because though if you're not a classic fan or followed beforehand what came with, it's good like it fills you in all the time. It's like every time Davros appears, it's like you're getting filled in on the backstory of him. Where the Daleks are like the TARDIS and the Doctor, you'd already know them because they're cultural icons. So you don't need to really watch much research to know who they are. It's just more or less if you want the story. I mean, for me personally, when I first saw Remembrance, I thought that was Ace's first story, and I thought, oh, he's just a doctor who's just picked up somebody random. Okay, that's his brand new companion. I didn't realise that Dragonfire was her first story until a bit later.
Yes.
So, do I have any negatives of the story? No, not really. The only thing I really, really wished it was just a little bit longer, just because you just don't want it to end. But apart from that, it's a perfect story as is.
Yeah, I'd say the only negative I have with the story is like more of a nitpick, like really to do with the production. Is like at times you can definitely see like the Daleks definitely being a bit wobbly. Although that was actually because like of like something new that they were trying with the production at the time, which was actually I they're using like three like spheres like a triangle formation like at the base of the Daleks, which was meant to help with like more mobility, but it didn't work for a bit. It does work in some regards, but in other regards, it does make them kind of look a bit wobbly. But and also like
Yeah, they're on the
yeah, and
lash.
also but also like in terms of like going in reverse, like they instead of being able to like simply like just turn around as they did beforehand, like ever since like the Daleks back in 1963, like instead they had to do like kind of like if they go for they have to like reverse a bit and then turn like sort of like driving a car. I mean, then again, I'm not 100% sure because I can't really drive.
Same. I can only drive in Europe. I can only drive in America. I can't drive in England. My instructor told me who taught you Grand Theft Auto.
And this has been like like story time with Matt. Thank you all for watching.
Yeah, sorry to segue in. But no, it's quite fun as a Dalek story. It really is. Because it's very straightforward, gets to the point, and it's great because this is something new who doesn't even tackle on about renegade factions with the Daleks. I think if they were to, I think the closest to Nuku would have been Resolution with the 3D printed Daleks. But apart from that, sorry, no, not Resolution. Sorry,
Yeah, the
Revelation,
revolution of the Daleks.
Revolution of the. See, this is what I mean. I've seen so many Dalek stories. All those pepper pots are looking the same to me.
Yeah, yeah. Because I get even with that, even if some parts of that does feel like it kind of copies like Blood of the Daleks from Big Finish, but again, that's a topic for another time.
And that's one remark I have seen consistently. But again, that's a topic for another time when we actually do Blood of the Daleks on here. But before I forget, before we also start wrapping up as well, is my final thoughts on the stuff. It's just joy. It's funny. It's got some great sense of humour, especially when Sylvester's just going manic. I live in a grass pudding. It's like, what kind of lines are these?
Yeah, yes. I mean, who can forget the iconic line of "unlimited rice pudding," etc., etc.
It's just like he just went on a massive tangent, and Davros is like, I have no time for this.
Yeah, and he's just getting really annoyed, and the Seventh Doctor's just like, "Oh, you know what? I'm just going to keep annoying you even more."
I think it's a really nasty performance from McCoy when he got with Davros, because when Skaro was literally blown up, the Doctor normally shows mercy to the Daleks and Davros. He's like, nope, 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 nope. You've made your bed, now lie in it. Goodbye, Davros. Ta-ta, ta-ra. I don't want to see you again.
Yes, it hasn't been pleasant.
It
And
reminds
then
me of
later
what.
on, yeah, I was going to say, like later on, we would see Davros again, both like in expanded media and on TV. Because the next appearance was, I think, in the comics, and then yeah, a certain book from the Eighth Doctor Adventures called War of the Daleks. But again, a topic for another time.
Yes. And for me, I think Davros. It's just when you listen to I Davros and you know the character inside out, you know Davros is doing this because he just wanted to make everything different because of the lab accident. And you know for a fact Davros has always been evil from the very beginning. So when he's begging for mercy, that's why the Doctor didn't have any left for him because he had been a right pain towards him. If you think about it as well, he's part of the reason why Tegan left him because of the death and destruction back on Resurrection, Revelation. It was filled with nearly everybody didn't survive nearly because of Davros. It's his fault that there's so much murder in the Doctor's life.
Yes.
But like Genesis is essentially, I know we've talked a little bit about it. It's like the essence of like why he was in there in the Daleks because he was dead, and obviously the timeline synced up. Four had met him before one would go meet on his creations.
Yes, like all the way back in the year 1975.
What a wrong way of chronology, but hey, it wouldn't be Doctor Who if they did things in order.
Yeah, it's like such a wibbly wobbly, timey wimey show. Like it can get away with that.
Yes. So we will be covering before we go. So our next topic, as a reminder, is Big Finish's Arrangements of War, which will be coming soon to the podcast. We'll be also be doing at some point Joy to the World because obviously we might do it during Christmas week. We might do it the week after. It's just we want people to go out and spend time with their families because obviously we're not being made to sit you all down and being held hostage. We're literally not holding a gun. I'm literally not pointing to Ada right now with a gun to the camera and saying to him, you are definitely doing it on the 25th.
Yeah, like you will watch Doctor Who. Like you cannot escape the series.
And yes, I don't care if you are plastered or you've ended up on a barge in Glasgow, you're getting on the podcast. I'm just joking.
I mean, that would be an interesting episode.
Aidan, where are you? I'm on the barge. What happened? I drank out of Davros's whiskey again.
Oh god. Oh god.
But no, also, yeah, so we're going to get, in the next while, we're going to get everything out for you as well. So we're going to try and be a bit more consistently regular. So we're going to go on a little bit of short break for the Christmas holidays as well. So if we can't get George the World out, we will be taking a quick break and back in January, where things will pick up. The next big finish for January will be after Arrangements for War. It's drum roll. We're going to go back in time. And since we've not tackled him on the podcast yet, we're going to go back to the Fifth Doctor and Peter Davison. And we're going to start with, well, it's one of Ada's favourite stories, so why not? Let's do in January the spare parts.
Oh yes. Now you're talking my language.
Yes, with the Mondesian Cybermen and the origin of course, the Cybermen. So we'll be back in January for
Yeah.
that edition. There'll also be more stuff coming to Tales of the Whoniverse. So on the present side of it, we won't just be solely focusing on films and what we'll focus on anything you want us to do. We'll do game reviews, we'll do comics, we'll do anything. As long as it's within reason and anybody's on the same wavelength to do it. I'm not going to force you to be like watching, I don't know, The Sound of Music to a hip hop beat. I'm not going to do that.
Oh.
But anyway, I hope you all have a good evening and have a good night. No.
And also, it's a good night for me. I hope you all enjoyed tonight's episode of Tales of the Whoniverse. And also, once again, I can't forget to say, don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Tales of the Whoniverse YouTube channel. And of course, you can't forget the last thing I've got to do before the end of every episode. Yes, Queen Slay. Good night, everyone.
Good night and enjoy. Bye.
Hello, this is Kerry's, and you've been listening to the Tales of the Whoniverse podcast.